right, 23 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this wet Tuesday morning. Hope you're doing well. It's time for News Bites. This is the segment of AM Ocala Live where Robin and I read the news to you. We shorten it so that we can get as many stories in this little segment as possible. And we also give you the news agency information so that you can look up the story in case you wanted to read further. Many of these stories do occur on more than one agency. And once in a while we don't have the agency, although lately I've been doing pretty good with getting the agency. Sometimes we get a news release and it's unclear. Usually, when that's true, though, it's usually ABC using AP, which is using like the New York Times. It's one of those multi-layered ones. Remember, if you are a business and you would like to bring business to your business, come into WOCA and speak to our sales staff. They will help you figure out how to get advertising on WOCA so that we can tell the folks that we speak to about your business and get some business through your doors. How about that? Visit us here at the Paddock Mall here in just outside the food court, or you can give us a call at 732-8000 and speak to pretty much everybody here except for me and Robin and Patsy.
Yeah.
I think everybody else can probably answer those advertising questions. All right, let's start with, I don't know which one to start with. I usually like to start with the big one. Okay, let me start with the one about Chris Christie. I don't know if you had this one or not, Robin. If you do, I apologize. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, by the way, this is from ABC News. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has kept a low profile since his nearly 2-hour press conference last week, where he apologized and denied having any knowledge of close aides plotting the politically motivated lane closures leading to the George Washington Bridge. But he can't lay low any longer, as he's scheduled to deliver his State of the State address today to both bodies of the state legislature. All eyes will be on how much, if any, of his speech is spent addressing the unfolding scandal now known as Bridgegate. But one theme of the speech will be working together over politics. An aide to Christie said the governor will focus on how in New Jersey we've made the choice to work together over the last 4 years, and that is a quote. The quote continues saying, quote, "Our biggest accomplishments were achieved together, and he will pledge to continue to do the same for a second term. He will ask the legislature and the people of the state of New Jersey to resolve to make the same choice and continue to put politics aside when it comes to the work at hand and put the people first." That was a quote from an aide in Christie's office speaking to ABC News, noting that he will also focus on a property tax relief initiative as well as safer streets and communities. And in addition to that, without reading the whole story, he will be proposing, I believe, longer school days than the public schools in New Jersey. And the State of the State address is scheduled to begin at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The whole country is looking at this governor of New Jersey.
Yeah. Under the iconic paintings in the Sistine Chapel on Sunday, Pope Francis told mothers that it's acceptable to breastfeed their children in public, even in holy sites like churches. Children's voices, even when crying, make the most beautiful choir of all, Francis said during a service in which he baptized 32 children. This is a quote from the Pope. "Some will cry because they are uncomfortable or because they are hungry. If they are hungry, mothers, let them eat, no worries, because here they are the main focus." The Sistine Chapel, with its famous frescoes by Michelangelo, is the official chapel of the Apostolic Palace, traditionally the papal residence. Francis, though, lives in the Vatican guest house, Casa Santa Marta, saying it better suits his low-key style, reported by CNN.
And this story from the Jerusalem Post, U.S. President Barack Obama said yesterday that it would not be right for Congress to impose new sanctions on Iran now that diplomacy should be given a chance to work. Obama made the remarks to reporters while meeting with Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy. Meanwhile, U.S. administration officials lauded the conclusion of technical talks with Iran this weekend, in which international powers agreed after a month of deliberations on how best to implement an interim deal, pausing the Islamic Republic's nuclear program.
Ronan Farrow definitely did not pull any punches Sunday night, and his mother, Mia Farrow, followed his lead yesterday. After Woody Allen received the Cecil B. DeMille Award at the Golden Globes for a lifetime of critically acclaimed movies, Ronan Farrow, age 26, sounded off via Twitter. This is a quote from Ronan Farrow. Missed the Woody Allen tribute. Did they put the part where a woman publicly confirmed he molested her at age 7 before or after Annie Hall? Allen, age 78, had a 12-year relationship with Ronan's mother, Mia Farrow, until 1992, when he was accused by Farrow's adopted daughter, Dylan, of touching her inappropriately. She was 7 years old at the time. That same year, it became known that Allen was having an affair with Farrow's adopted daughter, Soon-Yi Previn, who the director eventually married. After Vanity Fair ran an article this past October that brought up Allen's past, the icon's lawyer, Elkin Abramovitz, told the magazine that Allen still denies the allegations. This was the latest chapter in the contentious back and forth between Allen and the Farrows. Last October, Mia Farrow, age 68, said that Frank Sinatra, not Woody Allen, might possibly be the father of Ronan, reported by the Associated Press.
And this also from the Associated Press. By the time all 4 verdicts were read, clearing 2 California officers of killing a homeless man, people on both sides of the gallery were sobbing. In the audience, the mother of Kelly Thomas wept into a tissue as someone shouted no. A collective gasp went up from the gallery. Former Officer Jay Ciccinelli's attorney pounded twice on the defense table, grabbing his client in a bear hug. Former Officer Manuel Ramos's family clutched hands and cried. Thomas, who was 37 years old, died 5 days after a violent confrontation with 6 officers in July of 2011. A surveillance camera at the busy transit center where the incident unfolded captured him screaming for his father again and again and begging for air as the police need him, K-N-E-E-D, need him, jolted him with an electric stun gun and used the blunt end to strike him around the face and head. It was a rare case in which police officers were charged in the death involving actions on duty. Jurors took less than 2 days to reach their verdict. Ramos, 39, was acquitted of second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter yesterday. Ciccinelli, 41, was acquitted of involuntary manslaughter and excessive use of force. Orange County District Attorney Tony Rackauckus, who tried the case himself, said after the verdicts that charges will be dropped against Joseph Wolf, who was a 3rd officer awaiting trial. The FBI said that it will review the evidence to determine whether federal action is justified.
President Obama says he will use his upcoming State of the Union address to mobilize the country around the national mission of making sure our economy offers everyone who works hard a fair shot at opportunity and success. In his weekly radio address on Saturday, he outlined some of the steps he'll take to make 2014 a year of action. This is Obama's quote: "Working folks are looking for the kind of stable, secure jobs that went overseas in the past couple decades. So next week, I'll join companies and colleges and take action to boost the high-tech manufacturing that attracts the kind of good new jobs a growing middle class requires." This is reported by CNS News. Just my commentary: he laid off 12,000 people from NASA. Got rid of a lot of middle class jobs that way.
And this from Reuters news agency. The United States Justice Department yesterday said it would make an $8.4 million grant to groups helping victims and first responders involved in the bombing attack at the 2013 Boston Marathon. Funding will go to organizations working with the 264 people injured in the April 15th attack, as well as witnesses, emergency responders, and others affected by the blasts, which killed 3 people. The 2 brothers suspected of carrying out the worst attack on U.S. soil since 9/11 are also believed to have shot dead a university police officer 3 days later as they prepared to flee Boston, triggering a day-long manhunt and lockdown of most of the Boston area.
Former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon was buried on his ranch near the Gaza border yesterday in a military send-off to one of Israel's most controversial leaders. Israel's military chief of staff, Benny Gantz, recalled Sharon, who died Saturday at age 85, as a warrior, music lover, and farmer. And this is according to the Jerusalem Post. He also spoke of Sharon's creation of Unit 101 in his fight against terror. Sharon, comatose for 8 years after suffering a stroke, played a key role in military victories in both the 1967 Six-Day War and in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. In the political realm, he was the father of the Likud and Kadima parties. Sharon had several cabinet posts, including in defense, construction and housing, and foreign ministries. He was elected prime minister in 2001, reported by UPI.
And this story from the Associated Press, a Wyoming lawmaker is pushing to allow the use of the firing squad to execute condemned state inmates if constitutional problems or other issues ever prevented the state from using lethal injection. Senator Bruce Burns, a Republican from Sheridan, said yesterday that state law currently calls for using a gas chamber if lethal injection is unavailable. The state of Wyoming does not have a gas chamber currently, an operating gas chamber, he says, so the procedure and expense to build one would be impractical, he said. He is a member of the State Judiciary Committee. He went on to say, quote, I consider, frankly, the gas chamber to be cruel and unusual, so I went with firing squad because they also have it in Utah. Burns said he's introduced a bill for consideration in the legislative session that starts February 10th in the city of Cheyenne.
Russia has expelled a U.S. journalist living in Moscow for the first time since the Cold War, in a move that is likely to strain relations with Washington on the eve of the Sochi Winter Olympics. David Satter, a distinguished former correspondent with the Financial Times and the author of 3 well-received books on Russia and the Soviet Union, was told on Christmas Day that he had been banned from the country. Satter had been based in the Russian capital since September. Last month, he traveled to the Ukrainian capital Kiev to renew his visa, where Alexei Gruby, a diplomat at the Russian embassy, read him a prepared statement that said, the competent organs have decided that your presence on the territory of the Russian Federation is not desirable. You are banned from entering Russia. This is reported by The Guardian.
This next story is from Fox News. Taxpayers paid nearly $175 million for vacuum erection systems, commonly known as penis pumps, from 2006 to 2011. According to an Inspector General report released yesterday, the federal government paid more than double the retail price for the devices. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, Medicare prices for the systems, according to the report, remain grossly excessive compared with the amounts that non-Medicare payers pay for the VES, vacuum erection systems. Medicare paid 473,620 VES claims during calendar years 2006 through 2011, according to the report. Healthcare policy experts say the revelations in the report are a troubling indication of what they describe as wasteful spending in federal health programs. Taxpayers paid for 473,620 penis pumps.
Nice.
Wow.
The voice of Syrian women must be heard in all efforts to resolve the civil war that is tearing their country apart. A United Nations sponsors conference declared today, stressing that women's participation is vital in shaping a peaceful future for the strife-racked Middle Eastern nation. Women have a critical role to play in creating the foundation for a sustainable peace and a pluralistic Syria based on democracy and respect for human rights. This is a quote from UN Women Executive Director Fumlizi Mayombo Nikichu said at the end of a 2-day conference of Syrian women convened in Geneva by her organization together with the government of the Netherlands, reported by UN News.
And this story is from the Bloomberg Report. The United States posted a record December budget surplus as higher payroll taxes, payments from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and a declining unemployment rate helped improve the government's finances. Revenue exceeded spending by $53.2 billion last month, compared with a $1.19 billion deficit in December of 2012, according to a statement from the Treasury Department in a news release issued yesterday. The median estimate in a Bloomberg survey of 29 economists was for a $44 billion surplus, the same as the Congressional Budget Office's prediction.
Can a tortoise actually run away? Whatever the velocity, a 100-pound tortoise lumbered 30 miles before he was found and taken in by a foster family. It took the reptile 6 months to cover the distance. Earlier this month, the animal was reunited with his Arizona owners. When taking care of the tortoise, which was renamed Eddie, became too much, the foster family decided to place an advertisement in the Copa Monitor, a local publication, in hopes of finding his owner. Eddie has quite the personality, the advertisement said. He was found as a stray and appeared to be very well taken care of, yet no one came forward to claim him. He is about 15 years old and will live another 70 plus years, so a family who is committed to him for life is very, very important. The news of the mystery tortoise caught the attention of George and Mary Plum, who had 2 tortoises, Samson and Goliath, escape their home at different times last year. One was recovered, but the other made a clean getaway. A microchip that had been implanted in the tortoise that was found more than a marathon's distance away from home confirmed it was indeed the missing member of their menagerie. Whether it was Samson or Goliath, though, was anyone's guess, reported by the Associated Press.
Wow.
He ran
runaway
away.
tortoise. Next story is from Reuters. Colorado will warn motorists against driving stoned in a campaign that is being paid by $430,000 in federal funding. This, according to a statement issued yesterday, 2 weeks after the first U.S. recreational marijuana retail shops opened in the state. A series of television public announcement spots will air across the state beginning in March, warning drivers that offenders will face similar penalties to those caught driving under the influence of alcohol, according to a spokeswoman for the Colorado Department of Transportation, identified as Emily Wilfong. Handouts and posters will be distributed at the state's marijuana shops as part of the public service campaign funded by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Again, the story comes from Reuters.
A simple 15-minute test, which can be taken at home, can spot the early signs of Alzheimer's disease. This is according to researchers. The exam, which can be completed online or by hand, tests language ability, reasoning, problem-solving skills, and memory. Results can then be shared with doctors to help spot early symptoms of cognitive issues, such as early dementia or Alzheimer's disease. Around 800,000 people in Britain are currently suffering from dementia, with more than 1 million expected by 2021, reported by The Telegraph.
This is from MSNBC. Everyone wants a smartphone, especially muggers. Smartphone thefts now account for 30% to 40% of all robberies nationwide, according to the Secure Our Smartphones Initiative, which is a coalition of police, prosecutors, lawmakers, and consumer advocates. The group claims about 1.6 million people were attacked for their phones in the year 2012. Law enforcement believes technology exists, the so-called kill switch, to stop this epidemic of crime by removing the economic incentive for stealing these expensive phones. If activated, the kill switch would permanently lock the phone, making it inoperable on any network anywhere in the world. And any technology can always be overridden by some guy who knows how to override technology. That's my 2 cents. And we got that story from MSNBC.
A federal judge who endorsed suspicion-less searches of laptops, cameras, and cell phones at the border has set up a possible Supreme Court showdown challenging what critics call constitution-free zones and the Obama administration's dragnet approach to national security. A decision by Judge Edward Corman upholding the federal government's right to search travelers' electronic devices at or near the border conflicts with a similar ruling in California. That ruling requires a reasonable suspicion of criminal activity before agents can confiscate and examine personal photos, laptops, and files. Corman's ruling does not. This is reported by Fox News.
And this is from ABC News. A state lawmaker proposed yesterday that California extend its requirement that gun buyers undergo background checks and register their weapons to anyone who assembles a firearm in their home. The legislation by State Senator Kevin DeLeon is part of a growing effort across the country to preempt the spread of undetectable guns that can be made using 3D printers. His bill also would apply to anyone who buys parts that can be assembled into a gun. DeLeon said he is trying to address a twin threat from what he called ghost guns, the plastic guns that can slip through metal detectors, and unregistered weapons that can fall into the hands of people who are legally prohibited from owning firearms under state law.
The increasing connectivity of cars with GPS systems and other computers becoming more common raises questions about drivers' privacy, the U.S. Transportation Secretary warned yesterday. Speaking at the North American International Auto Show in Detroit, Anthony Fox said a balance had to be struck between the convenience and safety of drivers with their expectations of privacy. A senior executive at the Ford Motor Company was forced to hastily withdraw claims that he made last week about the ability of the car maker to track its drivers using new technology. Ford's Jim Farley, Global Vice President of Marketing and Sales, initially claimed the GPS units installed in the company's cars meant the company knew when drivers were speeding and when they weren't, reported by The Guardian.
And this story is from Wired. I guess that's a newspaper, right? I know we've used it before. I just can't remember if it's described as a newspaper or a magazine. It says PayPal President David Marcus is trying to make nice with Bitcoin, the digital currency that could ultimately become a big competitor to his company's massive popular online payments service. Yesterday on Twitter, he said the folks at PayPal are in fact believers in the Bitcoin and that the company supports the sale of Bitcoin mining rigs, the machines that help drive the worldwide open source software system that is Bitcoin. It's yet another sign that the influence of Bitcoin is expanding and that existing technology outfits like PayPal have no choice but to respond to the demand.
Voicing concern about the deteriorating security in parts of Iraq, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon today is urging all political leaders to unite against terrorism and work together to stabilize the country and stop the senseless deaths of Iraqi women, children, and men. This is a quote from the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. We agreed that the challenges facing Iraq require all political leaders to fulfill their responsibilities to ensure social cohesion, dialogue, and progress over political obstacles. This is reporting by UN News.
And this from the Associated Press. The billionaire creator of Beanie Babies will soon learn whether he'll have to spend up to 5 years in prison for evading taxes on $25 million in income. H. Ty Warner's sentencing this morning, or today rather, will also give him a chance to apologize at length for hiding his millions in Swiss bank accounts. The 69-year-old apologized and wiped away tears when he pleaded guilty last year, but the judge in Chicago stopped him and said he could explain himself fully at the sentencing. Defense attorneys are arguing for probation, pointing to Warner's unhappy childhood and his charity work. Prosecutors say Warner should spend some time in prison, though they haven't recommended yet how much. They also say his philanthropy shouldn't be a get-out-of-jail card.
If you've ever dined out in a party of 6 or more, chances are that you've noticed the automatic gratuity charge lurking at the bottom of your check. The compulsory tip, typically 18 to 20% levied at large parties at restaurants and nightclubs, has proliferated in Las Vegas as group dining and bottle service have become mainstays of strip nightlife over the past decade. The autograt, as it's referred to in the industry, ensures that servers head home with a wad of cash in their pockets at the end of the night and serves as a buffer against stingy tippers. Starting this year, however, the service industry is adjusting to life without the autograt. An IRS ruling that was effective January the 1st has reclassified automatic tips as service charges, reasoning that the charge is not a true gratuity if the customer is not given a choice about whether to leave it. Reported by the Las Vegas Sun.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for News Bites. We need to make room. Caroline Baldwin coming in next to talk about your garden. We do News Bites each weekday morning at this time. It takes about 23 minutes to get through the segment. We usually get between 20 and 25 news items in there, and we do that so that you can catch up on the news without spending all day listening to the radio, watching the TV, or reading the newspaper, and it gives us a chance to put news back into News Talk. Remember, if you're an advertiser, our business is to get business into your business. So let us know about your business. Come in and speak to one of our sales executives. We are located at the Paddock Mall right outside of the food court. Speak to one of our sales executives and they'll establish a relationship between you and us, and that will help us put business through your door. That's how that works. So come in and speak to somebody here or call in. 732-8000 is the office line. 732-8000. Robin, how many stores today?
26.
26?
Yeah.
Wow. One extra. We'll take a little break and be right back. Thank you.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. It was an all-too-real life-and-death drama at a Florida movie theater where police say a man who became enraged when another man refused to stop texting fatally shot him. He is charged with second-degree murder. New Jersey Governor